Hello, it's Friday, January 20th, 2023. This is the first Saluki Gamescast of the new year. You can tell everybody's very excited. All the ghosts are excited. So it's just a whole lot of woo.
Justin isn't here alone.
I didn't think I was, and now I'm scared.
It's only week one, and we're already dead from the semester.
But it's our first podcast back from the break and everything, so it's not going to be our normal podcast. It's going to be our Game of the Year podcast. We gave ourselves Christmas break off so that we could catch up on some games, play some new games that maybe we hadn't had a chance, and then come back. And also, we just needed a break. Nobody wanted to write anything or think about anything as finals and grading were going on. So this is the perfect time of the year, it feels like, to do this. So just a little bit late, but this is our Game of the Year 2022 podcast. So just to give you a little idea up front, we'll probably reiterate this kind of at the end. We're also going to have individual lists, and we have some of our previous guests who have been on the show. So Mario and Carly also have some lists that are going to go up. That'll all be going up on our website over the next week, so salukigames.com. And then we're going to do this podcast, and then we'll all have some individual choices that will go up on the website and everything. So look for that. But this is the website, the podcast collective 2022 best games. So we're going to start off with some categories, and then we'll finish with our top 10 of the year, making that list. So let's just jump right into the categories. And this first category is our Pokemon Game of the Year, which you would not think there would be enough Pokemon games in any year to pick a Game of the Year. But this year has been a lot of Pokemon. So our nominees for this are Pokemon Legends Arceus, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Go, and then Alicia, you said...
Yeah, new Pokemon Snap technically came out in 2021, so if we're sticking to 2022, even though it's my personal favorite of the three, we probably have to take it off the category.
Yeah, chopping it off.
Yeah, so that's our first deletion. I could have sworn Pokemon Snap came out this summer.
Same.
That's how long this year has felt, I suppose.
Seriously.
But we just snapped it out of existence.
10 out of 10, OJ. Good job.
Kept things perfectly balanced.
That's Marvel Snap. We'll get to that later. I should say I didn't introduce everyone. Our regular group is here. So OJ Duncan, Ryan Freels, Alicia Utecht. I'm Justin Young. So just so that everybody is introduced properly. 3 games left for our Pokemon Game of the Year. We have Arceus, we have Scarlet and Violet, and we have Pokemon Go. So does anybody want to make an argument to cut one of these or one of them that they feel really passionate about? Alicia, why is everybody looking at you?
Here's the thing. If we're talking in terms of like technical game, like the game not being broken at parts, then Scarlet and Violet is not, it's got its glitches, it's got its issues. But in terms of story, Scarlet and Violet are so good. That's my push for that. That's what I would put at number 1 for this.
So not Arceus, because and is it Arceus?
I think
It's Arceus. It is
Okay.
Arceus. They changed it because in the UK there was too much with Arceus, but it is Arceus. It's not Arceus.
Okay. So not Arceus, because I know a lot of people really love that game because it was doing something so different with the Pokemon formula.
Yeah, I think for me, Arceus was really interesting. And I think that Arceus, I'll be interested to see if they do, there have been rumors ever since this one that we'll get Pokemon Legends Celebi next. And I'd be interested to see how that would go. I think for me, the thing I prefer about Scarlet and Violet is that you get more of the characters. Like Legends Arceus doesn't really have as unique of characters for me. Whereas Scarlet and Violet every single character is unique and gets, the characters that you wouldn't even expect, like you're attending an academy, and so the teachers all get little storylines, and the different gym leaders, when you go rematch them, you get more development with them.
You mean the human characters, not the Pokemon themselves.
Right, the human characters. Well, and the box legendary.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what it is for me. Like Legends Arceus was very cool, and there were characters who got a lot of story, but there were also a lot more just generic NPCs, whereas I think Scarlet and Violet really leans into every character has a story, every character matters.
All right. Ryan, OJ, do either of you want to make a pitch for Pokemon Go?
So Pokemon Go has had constant events all year, and they introduced a Scarlet and Violet Pokemon through Pokemon Go, through a special event, and
like before the game launch?
Yeah, before the game launched. And so they
But
introduced...
have they introduced Farigiraf yet?
Not yet. So I know...
Then what's
I know
the
that
point?
Alicia is not, but they're introducing new mechanics. They're introducing a bunch of new stuff. So I would count Scarlet and Violet out of the game because of all of the technical glitches that it had. Because I actually haven't played it, but I was sitting just next to my partner while he was playing it, and I've seen a lot of the glitches that were pretty rough. And I think that a game of the year isn't going to have that many glitches in it. Otherwise, I would be 100% top, I think.
So I think for me, I'm like, and this could be just my experience of it, because when I played it, I really didn't. The only glitch that I experienced was the music during the Elite Four battles. Like, everything else played fine for me. I guess I did have some visual glitches where, like, a Pokemon evolving would be halfway through a bridge or something, but even those were few and far between compared to, like, what I was seeing other people experiencing. So
we had. Do you have like an LED?
No, I have a
You
regular Switch.
Okay, because it was a lot less because he got an LED after he started playing it.
Okay.
But on our regular one, and it was like first gen Switch coming out. It was like stuttering, like he was in a classroom and everyone was moving their legs and like he was stuttering trying to move through it. And it was real rough. And then others about a bunch of areas where the grass was flowing, and it was just it was stopping the game pretty much. So it was unplayable at points right at the beginning. Some of it was fixed, I think, through a patch, but
yeah. I'll say I didn't get it on release day. I got it like 5 days after release or something, and that was when I started playing it. So they might have gotten right on patching some of that.
I think they did, yeah.
Ryan, you were a newcomer to Pokemon Go this year, right?
Yeah.
So do you have anything to say?
I don't think I could say anything that like OJ couldn't. I think OJ's like the bigger fan of the game, so it's the only Pokemon game though I played, so I guess I'm technically for it. But I did play another Pokemon game, but that's not one from this year. That was one from years back. So I could only speak for Pokemon Go. I guess if I did have anything to say, I would. There's a part of me that wants to vouch for Arceus just because I think it was the one that initiated like doing some really new things that I know a lot of people are fans of.
But Ryan, remember, Scarlet and Violet gave us a kitty starter.
I did do that.
Was that the plant kitty?
Yeah.
The pot
Sprigatito,
kitty?
the weed cat.
Did give us Weed Cat.
That's a pretty big point in its favor.
Was cute. So yeah, I'm just gonna let you all fight this one out. I don't have a strong enough cat in this fight, so.
Well, I mean, as an outsider, I'll just add, as somebody who didn't play any of these Pokemon games this year, Arceus would get my vote because it was the coolest looking Pokemon game that I saw this year. Because it was so different, right? So it kind of made me go, oh, that's kind of neat and interesting. But, I can't speak to it. I didn't actually play any of them.
The Scarlet and Violet, we did get Lechonk and the Graveyard Dog.
Graveyard. Yep.
Yeah.
We got Lechonk. We got Graveyard. We got so many. We crossed the 1,000 in the Pokedex.
Yeah, because they made a big deal out of number 1,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the video that they put together for that, the nostalgia for the first ones were so
And for
good.
the big power up in this Pokemon game, they got to wear chandeliers on their heads.
That is a hit against it, that you can't customize the outfits very much, but...
But there's a lot of customization in Pokemon Go. I'm just saying.
Aw,
I just like the way he worked that in there. Very subtle.
I won't argue in Scarlet and Violet being the game of the year, but I think Pokemon Go is a real big contender.
I guess. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how about, all right, this for the compromise. Best game of the year, Scarlet and Violet. Best Pokemon game still going, Pokemon Go.
Okay.
Scarlet and Violet's going to have DLC, though. You know it will. Nintendo doesn't have enough of our money, you know?
I mean, if it doesn't glitch out of existence. Oh, I got in the fight now.
And I'll concede to Scarlet Violet.
Well, I think one way to look at this is, which game really did the most new this year? Like Pokemon Go is a very good game, is sustained itself now for whatever it's been, 7-8 years that game's been running. It's probably like twice that, and I'm just completely clueless.
No, summer of 2016.
Oh, okay, close.
7 years.
So,
6.5.
I think one way to look at it is which of these games did the most new this year to like kind of earn that title. And
see, I think Legends Arceus probably did the most new, but I think Scarlet and Violet integrated a lot of the best of that new, as well as keeping, your traditional, you go through the gyms and your Elite Four, but then also we're introducing the alpha Pokemon and stuff like that.
Well, I meant between Scarlet, Violet, and Go. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think Arceus, nobody's really arguing for it except for the two people who didn't play it. So, I think between those two, which one do we feel like has accomplished the most this year? Might be a way to kind of determine.
I think Scarlet and Violet, honestly, because there's like the 3 main storylines, and there's just so much in the world, I'd say.
Okay. Are we all comfortable with that choice?
No, I think they should be doing Pokemon Snap. Yeah, well, I'm good with this.
All right, so your Pokemon Game of the Year is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, barely beating out Pokemon Go as the runner-up. We'll just keep runner-up in there.
Yeah, Pokemon Go is a good runner-up.
So let me make a notation there.
And it might win the next one.
It might.
So our best mobile game of 2022, the nominees are Vampire Survivors, Marvel Snap, Pokemon Cafe Remix, Pokemon Go, and Idle Apocalypse.
So I absolutely love Idle Apocalypse, but there wasn't anything like really big new this year. So I'm fine taking that one off. But it is one of my favorite games, I will say.
Yeah, Pokemon Cafe Remix really did an overhaul like December of 2021. So on the one hand, I feel like they did have new stuff this year. On the other hand, it's still basically the same game. So I feel like that one, as much as I personally enjoy it, I couldn't call it the best mobile game of the year.
All right. So that leaves Vampire Survivors, Marvel Snap, and Pokemon Go.
I feel like this one's got to be Marvel Snap.
That's
Just
the one.
the way it overtook everything
Yeah.
and continued to be so good for so long, and still is, except for now they are doing exorbitant spend money to get a new card image.
Yeah.
Right.
But
But the fact that you don't have to do that to play the game exactly the same as everybody else, I think is...
Yeah, you do not have to spend $60 on the 2 female characters or whatever it was. It It was
Yeah,
like
the two
$60.
lesbians.
It was really crazy.
Yeah,
It was $30 for X-Men 90s Rouge and Gambit, and then $60 for the... Now I can't remember their names. One of them is Thor's sister.
Yeah, Hela and
Yeah.
I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
Y'all know the
But
two
yeah,
we're
the
talking about.
the lesbians.
Yeah.
That's the title of this episode.
Hella and her lesbian lover.
That's the title of this episode.
Are they lovers?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, as much as anyone in comics is, they have their off and on, but
I mean, OJ, so like I didn't know. Like, OJ in our chat had pointed out, oh, those two characters are lesbians, but that didn't mean they were, together.
Oh no, they absolutely are. They're like super bonded.
Okay.
Like coming back from death for each other. Like,
Oh,
bonded.
okay. Yeah, so I don't know the.
And
I have
Death is
not
pretty
read
strong in
comic
this game,
books
too, so that's
regularly
like a
since
lot.
the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so Vampire Survivors, I will say, is free on mobile now, which I think makes it like everyone should play that. The one thing I'll say is I don't know that that's a game you can play on a phone, or certainly not any phone I've ever owned. Like it would have to be one of those massive, chunky phones to work.
I was kind of surprised when I saw you put that on mobile game. I was like, I thought y'all were playing that on Steam.
Well, they released it right before Christmas on mobile, and I will say on iPad, I actually have played it on there, and it works really well on
Really?
there. Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're interested in playing it and you have a tablet computer of some kind, it is on Android as well, as far as I know. I think it does work well on there, but I cannot imagine playing that on a phone.
It was rough on a phone. I was trying it on a phone and it was pretty rough.
Yeah. Whereas Marvel Snap works really well on
Yeah.
a phone because you can zoom in on the cards. I have trouble sometimes reading what the effect of a card, but you can just click it and zoom in, and it makes it work really well.
I think that should then maybe be the thing that cuts out because here's the thing. I think Vampire Survivors, like, you haven't played it yet. I want to play it. I can play it on my Xbox One. I'm going to try to do that soon. But I do want to give that game, like, still a huge credit because, like, that's going to be a big thing going on now. A lot of games are going to be doing this. There's already more games trying this, and that it's, people are, like, saying that it's, I don't know if it's the first one necessarily. I hate trying to say what's the first thing to do a thing. But, like, they're like are talking about like how it's kind of formed like a new genre, like reverse bullet hell or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And it almost like gives me like this is like the opposite of Dark Souls vibes, and that Dark Souls is supposed to be ridiculously hard. This makes you seem like the ridiculously hard boss to fight.
Right.
So I think that like just kind of how this kind of might be igniting a new genre should be given credit. But if it's not doing that well on like iPhone or something or Android, I don't think it should be considered the best mobile game. My personal favorite is Marvel Snap, just because I'm a big card and board game fan anyway. And this to me is like what I want Magic to be when I play it. Because like with Magic, like I think one of my favorite board and card game reviewers, Rado Run Through, he said that his big issue with Magic is if a game has a built-in mulligan rule, that shows you problems with the game, like where you have to like where you were expected to like reshuffle at the beginning. And I think this does this by giving you a streamlined deck of cards to work with that you build, and even with just so many with way less cards, there's multiple strategies and ways of balancing out your deck and stuff that I'm still exploring and having a lot of fun with. And aside from that, I like that it eliminates like mana as it's existed in the Magic games where you have to like get out the land cards. No, you just have built-in power system, which I think other card games have done before, but it's implemented really nicely here in Marvel Snap. So it's where I'm tipping my hat towards. That said, I see why Pokemon Go is still significant. Just I personally had the most fun with Marvel Snap. I can't speak to Cafe Remix or Idle Apocalypse. I didn't play them, so...
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it multiple times on this podcast that we've been obsessed with Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
So there's at least a solid 5 episodes that Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is just, again, I'm not somebody who likes card games, but it's just so well made.
Yeah.
It's like such a smooth, like onboarding into the game, and then once you're into it, it's so quick and fast to play a game. And, and again, you can play it, waiting for class to begin or something. You can play it while, sitting on public transit or something. It feels like the perfect mobile experience.
It's replaced, for now anyway, it's replaced Tetris as my chill out and just play a game, which, foreshadowing, but yeah, I'm for Marvel Snap.
All right, so I
feel like that's pretty solidly unanimous.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
what do we want as our runner-up? If that's our number one...
I mean, I think I would put Pokemon Go at runner-up because I think it's still done a lot of good stuff. And like Ryan said, Vampire Survivors has done a lot of really interesting stuff for gaming, but as a mobile game, a little trickier.
Right.
I think that's fair. I think, it's, again, a really amazing game, but it's also an amazing game that is almost impossible to play on phone.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that is for best mobile game. Your winner is Marvel Snap, and runner-up Pokemon Go. All right. So our next category, as Ryan hinted at, is best chillaxing game. So this is the best game to play when you just kind of want to kick back and relax and everything. And we have a lot of the same nominees, but the nominees are Vampire Survivors, Power Wash Simulator, Pokemon Cafe Remix, and Marvel Snap. Any thoughts?
I mean, Marvel Snap's the only one of these I've played, so...
Okay, so here's the thing with Marvel Snap for me is that I lose time when I'm playing it. So if I just want to relax before I have something to do in like an hour or two, I can't do Marvel Snap because I'll miss whatever I need to do in an hour or two. So I can't chillax to Marvel Snap. I have to set a timer.
Yeah. I think for me, like, Marvel Snap, I think, takes more brain power and strategy.
Yeah.
Like, Cafe Remix is my personal go-to chillaxing game, but I also think Power Wash Simulator would probably be what I would say for the award title.
And those are fair points. And Marvel Snap got best mobile game, so I'm willing to just let that one go. So.
And Vampire Survivors, too, I can just sit down and play and relax to it. So I will... Power Wash Simulator and Vampire Survivors, honestly, are good. Well, Pokemon Cafe Remix, too, was really chillaxing.
Yeah, I can speak to Power Wash Simulator. That game is just, I feel like the sort of definition of a relaxing game. There's, in Vampire Survivors, you are having to, like, pay attention to what you're doing. Like, you are having to think about, well, which upgrades do I want to get and which item do I need so that this gets its evolution and everything. You don't have to do any of that in Power Wash Simulator. You just kind of turn off your brain and watch the mud just slide away as you wash over it and everything. And so there is something extremely relaxing, extremely satisfying about that. I'm not somebody who normally can watch those videos on YouTube, those relaxing videos. They have some of those of people power washing stuff, and they're like, "Oh, it's so relaxing. Watch as it cleans." And that doesn't do anything for me, but this game did.
Yeah.
And when I didn't want a game I was having to think about or be really involved with, it really hit that spot super well. So I would say Power Wash Simulator needs to be one of the two. And then I'm willing to, if somebody's super passionate about one of the other two, I'm completely up for either of those.
Yeah, I would put Power Wash Simulator at number one. I never played it, but some of my friends on Twitch would, and I would be in their stream and just be like, dang, this is really nice.
Yeah, I would say Vampire Survivors too.
For the runner-up?
For runner-up, yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Well, then, your best chillaxing game is Power Wash Simulator, and with the runner-up, Vampire Survivors. Both excellent podcast games. I almost titled this category Best Podcast Game. But I like chillax as a word better. All right. Our next category is Most Disappointing Game.
Oh, if only everyone listening could see OJ's face right now.
Okay, so I don't want this to be one of the competitors, but I want to also give a strange honorable mention to what is also my favorite game of the year, AI, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, because I love that game, but I also got really mad at that game, and it had a lot of high points, which is why it's my favorite, but the low points were so bad. But I just want an honorable mention to my favorite game for most disappointing game.
Well, I mean, I think we can include that in the conversation. For most disappointing game, our nominees are High on Life, Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, Chaos, Rogue Legacy 2, and AI.
Okay, so here's my pitch. Stranger of Paradise could have been amazing. The story is it's okay. Like, it could have been better. But it's not a Final Fantasy game. It's a Final Fantasy game in story only. But you can't travel around the world. You just go to each, like, specific area. You're not going and, like, buying and selling items. You can break apart items to, like, build them up. There's no unique items. There is, like Muramasa. Oh, this big, amazing sword. Oh, wait, you just got 30 of them when you ran through this dungeon.
What?
Yeah.
Hang on.
And they all, yeah. So, and then they all have different, like, stats on them. And, like, some of them are better quality than others, right? And it's the same with all of the unique weapons that you would normally get. And the characters are...
Don't sugarcoat it. Tell us how you really feel.
The characters are really, like, two-dimensional, honestly. And
sounds like they could use a little spice of life from chaos.
yes. But even with all the chaos, it was really, really one-dimensional. And I would love to see this story be brought into something that's more of an actual Final Fantasy game rather than just picking spots on a map and then you go into that dungeon.
So, looking over this list of games, were any of us as excited about as OJ was about Final Fantasy Origin?
I was.
And then and then let down by it with any of these other games?
No. High on Life always looked like trash to me.
Yeah,
I'm not sorry.
That was my first cut, not because I thought it was a good game, but it was like, I expected this to suck. The thing is, AI, the Somnium Files, is still also my favorite game, as much as I was disappointed with it at times. I was not, like, let down to the monumental level by it that OJ was. Do I like it as much as the first game? No. Will I still play the third game when it comes out? Yeah. OG was so sad by Stranger of Paradise. So.
I think the fact that, we started talking about Stranger of Paradise probably, the first couple of podcast episodes?
I think it was back in June, right?
Yeah.
At least.
And so it's still been how long, and we're still joking about chaos.
OJ was wounded by this game.
Yeah, I feel like that just is a testament to the legacy and the power that this game held over 2022 as the most disappointing game.
Yeah, OJ's partners were telling me they walked in on him in the room the other day, and he was like looking at a copy of the game while Johnny Cash's Hurt was playing.
A single tear running down my face.
What have I become?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'll speak to Rogue Legacy 2. That's not a bad game. It's just not the experience that the first game is. The level design isn't as good in it. And so it's disappointing, but it's not it didn't ruin my year in the way I feel like Final Fantasy Origin did. So I think Final Fantasy Origin wins. I would argue for High on Life as the runner-up, not because I was super looking forward to that game, but obviously over break, while we were off, some things came out about Mr. Roiland.
Yeah.
And this is a game that his studio produced, in which he is the main voice actor. And I got to tell you, first off, that game, I hated my experience playing that game. But
thank you for suffering for all of us to experience playing that game.
I suffered so you would not have to.
Yep. You took the L.
But like now, like knowing what we know about Justin Roiland and like just what an absolute trash piece of human being he is.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm disappointed in that game, like tangentially, just like his connection. And I feel like it sired that game for a whole lot of people. Like I can't imagine that there's a lot of women who want to play that game anymore and listen to Justin Roiland's voice.
I can't imagine why people would want to listen to his voice to begin with, but
Well, yeah.
no, I agree. Your
anyone.
point's well taken.
Yeah, so I think there's a strong argument for it because at least with AI, Ryan really does like AI. It's not as good as the first one, but like it doesn't sound like you're terribly disappointed in it.
No, like, so it's okay. So there's a podcast, I mean, a YouTube video. They also do a podcast called Shut Up and Sit Down. One of the ways you talk about some board games that have elements that they like and elements that they don't is they compare them to prog rock albums. Like they'll have some really people are experimenting with music in prog rock, and you'll get some really cool songs on an album, but then there's also like some lulls in the album that's like, okay, this didn't quite work. That's kind of how I feel about the AI, the Somnium Files games. Whereas I still overwhelmingly loved the first one. I loved parts of this one, but there was parts of the second one that I was genuinely like super put off by, or even like mad about, because I think I told you that there was just the really off-putting comment about a non-binary character in the game that really upset me.
Right.
And it just had one of the most awful twists like I think I've ever seen, like a twist that would make M. Night Shyamalan like cringe. It was the twist in that game was just that, oh, by the way, the reason why you have this weird time paradox thing going on. It's just because we lied to you about like the times things were taking place at the beginning of the game, or we misled you.
Right.
There was never like any issue with like time travel or anything. We just misled you about like when things were taking place. That is like the crappiest twist. Like it makes me think that Bob's Burger episode where it's like a lie can't be a twist. Like he's like, sure it can, but it's like, okay, I guess it can, but it's awful.
Yeah.
So it's just, it had a bad twist, and it had like just some things that it had things that genuinely like made me mad for good reason, but the overall game I wasn't upset about. And to its credit, like to the credit of like the English like voice casting, I did find out like one of the main vocal artists in it, like that played a character, was non-binary, and that was one of my favorite characters too. So it, I have at least I got that from it, and it's still like a very fun game overall. And I'm just going to play the third one. I was not as monumentally like disappointed with it as OJ was, though, with Strangers of Paradise, and it does not have the disgusting person behind it. At least I hope it doesn't. That High on Life does. So
Okay.
I do think that, though, Justin Roiland should get our biggest piece of trash award, though. Like,
I don't think we have that award, but maybe we need to add it real quick.
addendum.
We'd have to add Blizzard Activision to
I was
it.
gonna say.
Nintendo to it.
There'd be a real competition there.
Well, Microsoft, with the layoffs they've done in recent days, and Yves Guillemot, the head of Ubisoft, for his comments to the workers.
Oh, yeah, that would be a whole list.
Elon Musk for Twitter.
Yeah, it's not even video game related. It's just Elon Musk is trash.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, your most disappointing game. Your winner is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, with High on Life as your runner-up.
Chaos.
All right, our best moment in a game. The nominees are the post-credits fight in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, the first time the night sky is brought back, Elden Ring, seeing the underground area for the first time, and the Professor reveal in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So anybody want to talk about one of these nominees?
First off, OJ, what was your favorite?
It's the Shadowbringers one.
Guys, let's let OJ have this.
We'll talk.
Hold on. Yeah, hold on. So while this was probably one of the most amazing moments I've ever seen in a game, it also did come out in like 2019 or so. But I experienced it recently. But it's probably the best moment I've seen in a game ever. So the story behind it is that the people on this planet for 100 years, it's been like bright. Like light took over the entire planet, and there's no night sky. There are people who like worship the night sky, and they've never seen it, and and all of these people have just been like haunted by these sin eaters, these like creatures of light, for like 100 years, and then you finally defeat this light warden, and then it shows the sky that's this like bright, horrible bright thing, and then it just splits in the middle, and there's a night sky in it. It's a really beautiful night sky, and it's fantastic. But I will concede that it was in 2019 when that actually came out. So
okay, Alicia, you sounded like you felt very passionate about one of these.
Okay, I am.
It's Elden Ring, right?
Oh yeah, that's the one that I wanted. I do need to say, like, Kirby and the Forgotten Land post-credits fight is absolutely my runner-up, because that was fantastic. But the freaking professor reveal in Pokemon Gen 9. I'm going to speak Violet, but they do the same thing in Scarlet. It's just a different professor, so it's easier for me to just say one name. You get to... So the entire time, you never actually meet Professor Turo in person.
We should say spoilers, obviously.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
In fact, this entire category will be spoilers. So.
Yeah. But the entire game, you never interact with Professor Turo in person. You're always on video call with him. And so then you complete the 3 open world storylines, and you go to Area 0, and as you're going down and down each level, you continue having these video calls with Professor Turo, and Turo is also the father of another one of the NPCs, Arvin, but the entire time he's only really interacting with you. He's never paying much attention to the other characters that are there. And so all of us were like, okay, totally, Turo is stuck in the future. Or if you were playing Scarlet, Sato is stuck in the past, and that's what it's going to be. Like, that's going to be the twist. No. You get down there, and the 3 NPCs are all keeping the Paradox Pokemon away from you. You walk up to Professor Turo. He's sitting in a chair with his head down, and then his head comes up, and he's like, rebooting. And you see his eyes start flickering. You find out the Turo that you've been interacting with the whole game is an AI that was built by the original Professor Turo to help him finish this machine to bring Pokemon to the present from the future. The original Professor Turo died pre-game because he got in the middle of a territory dispute between the Miraidon that you've been playing with all game and the one that, of course, is the big bad.
Hey, get off my lawn!
And the original Turo set it up where he just wanted all the future Pokemon to keep being brought to the present day. That's all he wanted. And AI Turo is like, this is wrong. I need you to help me stop this. And here's the thing. When you try and shut it off, my programming's going to override what I want, and I'm going to end up fighting you. So please defeat me, and like, let's do this. And that entire battle is so good. The reveal was just, ever since the first Pokemon games came, ever since Gen 1, people have been trying to get a Professor battle. In Gen 1, they found in the code that there was a deleted battle against Professor Oak, and we've always been trying to get that to happen. And for it to happen in this way, where the original professor was not a good human being. The AI is actually the one who's trying to stop that and save the world.
That is a pretty cool twist.
It was so good.
That sounds really cool.
If you ever need, just like look up people's reactions to it, and seriously, we were all like, absolutely, we knew something was up, but we did not think it was this.
Okay, I also want to give that credit to you, because it's not the AI that's evil. It's that's the good part. Like, that
Right?
feels like a fairly unique twist. It's not the AI version that's like going Skynet or HAL or something. It's
Yeah, like so many times the AI is the one that's like crazy, conquer the world, and the human is like, no. And this time, every time that the AI tries to overcome its programming, it's Turo who installed all those protection programs to make sure that it could not.
Guys, let's let Alicia have this.
I'll just talk about Elden Ring here real quick. Elden Ring, the first time you kind of venture into the underground area, and again, spoilers, but that game is so detailed, the world and the enemies that you're encountering, and you go through the overworld and you're like, this is amazing. This game is huge and there's so much. And every time you walk into a new area, your just mind is kind of blown like, wow, this is an entirely new area. I didn't know this was over here. And then you go underground and the first time you step out and you're like, there's an entire new world down here. And this is gigantic and like a huge new area to explore. And everyone I've talked to who's played the game and gotten to that point in it said my jaw just dropped. And it's almost it's not the same thing. And so I don't want to make it confused, but it's sort of the same almost feeling I had the first time I was playing through Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh, yeah.
And the first time you realize that there's the inverted castle and like you're only halfway done with the game.
Yeah.
And there's a similar kind of feeling in that moment of, oh, this is like so much more than I expected it to be. And it's a really cool moment. I'm not nearly as passionate about it, even though I think it's cool as it sounds like Alicia is about Pokemon, or even OJ is about Final Fantasy XIV. But I do think it's a really cool scene and probably one of the neater moments of the year when I was playing a game. The other thing I'll add is the instruction manual pages in Tunic. When you start collecting those and you start realizing what all those actually reveal is a pretty cool moment. And that entire mechanic of the instruction page manuals is just one of the coolest things in a game all year. And so I would say that's a really cool moment, but I don't think that quite even equals up to Elden Ring.
And I guess like on that same note, I'll add that one of my favorite moments, though I don't think it's like there's a particular character that's like significant to the AI, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, and you realize that who you've like believed has been their parents, like since the first game, wasn't actually their parents, and that a eugenics lab that you're investigating was actually responsible for their existence. And that was like, and it made a lot of sense out of how that character functioned, because like that character was like ridiculously super powerful, and it was like kind of played up as for laughs and as a joke, like how are they so freakishly strong? Like, oh, that's how. So that would be but again, I don't think that I feel as strongly about that Alicia does about Scarlet and Violet, or as OJ does about Shadowbringers. So,
all right. So, what are we thinking as the two on here?
Scarlet and Violet, and then
I didn't know if anybody else felt passionately about Kirby, because I know a few of you played through that.
I mean, I do think that the Kirby moment was phenomenal. I really do. But also I think that, it was one of those moments for me where everything came together, but it wasn't quite. I really appreciate what you're saying about Elden Ring being like, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger.
Yeah.
So I feel like from what you've said, Elden Ring would probably be my runner-up in terms of best moment in a game for the year.
How does everyone else feel?
I feel good with that.
I am fine with this.
Okay, then. Sorry, I am trying to make notes quickly while we're talking about this. All right, so that's decided. Our best moment in a game is the Professor reveal in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and the Underground reveal in Elden Ring. Lots of revealing things going on in the best moment. Our next category is a stupid one.
It's a fun one.
It's the best one.
But it is our best Sonic character of the year, and the nominees are Sonic, Shadow, Big the Cat. Okay, category over. We have our winner. Rouge the Bat, Amy Rose, and my sentimental favorite, James Marsden from the Sonic 2 film.
I'm surprised Knuckles didn't get mentioned here.
Yeah, he's
but
quite
we're all
good in the
chuckling.
movie.
You couldn't have Knuckles.
So,
My vote's James Marsden.
Yeah, let him have this. If he doesn't win this, we know he's listening to this podcast. We know that if he doesn't win this, he'll be like sobbing into his chili dog while Hurt by Johnny Cash plays.
Oh man. I mean, for me, it's got to be Sonic, but I also understand this is a joke category. I'll let y'all have one. James Marsden.
I mean, they brought Big the Cat back this year.
They did bring Big the Cat back this year.
And they have him fishing. And what is better than Big the Cat fishing?
James Marsden.
That they may be the only thing.
But the fishing mini game in Sonic Frontiers is actually very chill and very relaxing. Like, my sister said that when she was on the podcast, and now that I've played Frontiers, I agree with her. So I would be good with Big the Cat. Just as the best Sonic character who really had moments this year.
So, are we thinking James Marsden, Big the Cat are our winners? Mm-hmm.
Let's be that podcast. James Marsden.
James Marsden wins. Big the Cat is our runner-up. The best Sonic.
I can't believe it. I added that as a joke and he became the winner. I'm so happy.
Not as happy as James Marsden is.
Oh, man.
All right, our next category is Prettiest Game of the Year. And pretty is a vague term there. But our nominees are Horizon Forbidden West, Pentiment, God of War Ragnarok, and Harvestella.
I'm going to add Sonic Frontiers as a nominee here, too.
All right.
I'm going to add James Marsden as a nominee.
Just to every category.
Yes.
All right, I'll jump out here and I'll talk about Pentiment real quick. I don't know if you have seen Pentiment.
I've not.
Okay, so Pentiment was this really weird game that came out of Obsidian this year, who traditionally makes role-playing games. And it is I guess adventure-style game is the way to describe it, but it is an adventure-style game done in the style of medieval scrolls. So everything looks like it's a medieval scroll, and all the animation, all the character designs, and the buildings you're going into. So it looks like you're walking across a scroll and everything, and it just has that sort of look throughout the entire game.
Interesting.
And it's just such a unique game, and it's the sort of, and it's a game like Obsidian made it, like under, I guess they were working on it before Microsoft bought them. But it's the sort of game that they actually put some money into. So it's the sort of style that you would not be, you would expect out of an indie studio, but not a AAA studio. And so the fact that it's a AAA studio doing it, and they have the talent and they have the manpower to really put into this game, just really makes it stand out. And even though I really think God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West are both very good-looking games, they are very good-looking games that look like the last games in their franchise. And Pentiment just looks unlike anything else out there. And I think that makes it, to me, certainly in my top two for this category.
I forgot what this was. I'm remembering I saw trailers for this. This is one I want to try.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on Google Images right now, and this is really pretty.
I don't want it to win, but I did want to mention Harvestella just because I do think that game has a I didn't put that on the most disappointing one game because I wasn't that disappointed by it. I was just like, okay, this is more meh than I was hoping. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't like upset by it. But it has a very soft anime aesthetic that I liked in it and I thought worked well for it. I don't think it's like the most spectacular looking game ever, but I think it did have a very pretty, like, nice look to it. And I think a lot of people were kind of dogging on how it looked a little more underdone than it should have. But I thought it worked for what it was, so I just wanted to give it like a mention. I've seen like, I know what you're talking about with Pentiment, and I think is better than this. And I've seen trailers for Horizon Forbidden West, and that's prettier. I thought that this should get a mention also.
I brought up Sonic Frontiers because I think especially a lot of the stuff that they do with the cyberspace and kind of breaking down was really interesting, and I guess pretty might not even be the word. It was very aesthetically pleasing to me, but
that might actually be a better title for this category, most aesthetically pleasing, because pretty, like God of War Ragnarok's not really a very pretty game, but it's very aesthetically pleasing, right?
Yeah. And so, yeah, looking back at Pentiment, I think Sonic Frontiers for me is more like aesthetically pleasing in terms of sharpness and following, kind of having the breakdown of the cyber code and all that. But I think I would give this to Pentiment because I really like that Pentiment has a theme that it sticks with the whole way through. That I think that really gives it that push above the others.
Well, if Pentiment wins, what do we think is the runner-up in this category?
Well, so I think Horizon Forbidden West was absolutely gorgeous, and if we stick by pretty, then that would win, honestly. But I think Pentiment looks really fantastic for what it is. So, but I think Horizon would be a runner-up then.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with this.
All right, so your prettiest / most aesthetically pleasing game of the year is Pentiment, with the runner-up being Horizon Forbidden West, which really has not gotten anything this year, so it's nice to give them a consolation prize.
Runner-up.
Our next category is Best Game with Friends. So this category is game to play in a group, like get people around the couch and play a game together. And our nominees are Rift Tracks, the game, which we all actually did play together, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, and The Quarry. I think we all played Rift Tracks. I can speak to the other two here real briefly, and then if anybody else wants to jump in. Ninja Turtles is a pretty fantastic throwback to those classic arcade Ninja Turtles games. So if you played the original or Turtles in Time, but it obviously has been modernized slightly, so there's some leveling up and different things that makes it feel like a more modern game, but still having a lot of the sensibilities of those classic games. The Quarry is the latest from that team that does all the horror games. They did Until Dawn, and they do the entire, what is that franchise even called? The Dark Pictures franchise that they do. They've been putting one of those games out just about once a year, I think. And so it is very much like teen slasher film that you're interacting with and that you're making choices. Do we go into the woods or do we turn back, and that sort of thing. And it has, just inherently that nature of people sitting around and yelling, "Oh no, do this," and so it works out pretty well with that. Ninja Turtles is, I think, 6 players can play at once, so is actually an upgrade from traditional Turtles games because it lets you throw in Casey Jones and April and Splinter into the mix as well. So
I like all of that, but I still think I'm going to say Rift Tracks.
Yeah.
Because I think what I really liked about Rift Tracks was that they had multiple different ways to play the game, where if you didn't want to come up with sayings, then you could play it where they generated the sayings and you just picked one, or you could play it where you came up with your own captions. I do think that it can be improved, but I like that they have those options for people who maybe don't think of themselves as gamers. I feel like Rift Tracks has the same kind of vibe as Jackbox games do.
Right.
And that I think makes it, I think that Like the TMNT one, I would think best game to play with other friends who are also gamers. But Rift Tracks, I think, is a really good one to just play with anybody, regardless of if they think they're a gamer or not.
And I think that it's such like the Rift Tracks game was like such a smart idea and a smart design. Because when I first heard that they were doing that, I'm like, how do you make a game out of Mystery Science Theater? Like, how do you turn that into a game? And they did it. And it was like such an easy do. Like, on one hand, it feels like such a simple do that I'm like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. But they thought of it, and I think it works really well. I loved that stuff as a kid, like Mystery Science Theater, and just seeing that turned into this game is really cool.
And I think Alicia makes a good point about the added modes, like particularly with the one where you choose the riff and you're not having to come over. That was one of the big complaints I've heard when I've played these sort of games with friends in the past, even the Jackbox games, is people saying, well, I'm just not that funny. And I can't come up with clever things, so I'm always losing, so it's not fun. And I think, that makes it a little bit more fun where anybody can kind of join in and everything and still feel like they're participating, they're doing something. They're not just randomly choosing, but, they get to kind of think about that if they can't come up with something super quick, like you do in the normal modes. So I do think that goes a long way towards this even being a better game than the last game the developers did, which was a very similar premise.
So I think for game with friends, Rift Tracks gets better with friends. The other two are like good with a group. Well, I mean, all of them are good with a group, but Rift Tracks gets better with friends because you could do like inside jokes.
Yeah.
And include that.
Oh, good point.
So I think that's my number one for me. And then I would
Every time a scene is delayed, you got to update the controllers.
You definitely do.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to be honest. I don't like the arcade style games. They always got me really frustrated when I would play generally. So I'm going to go with the Quarry for my runner-up, I would say.
Any other thoughts?
I don't know if I have a runner-up for this one because I feel like I didn't... Like Shredder's Revenge I knew about, but the Quarry was not even on my radar. So I feel like the only one I can really say anything on is Rift Tracks.
Yeah, same. I mean, I'm fine with like OJ's point. Plus, I'm not gonna. I would not be a lot of people's favorite person by saying this, but honestly, I just never got into the Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were just never my jam. So
I do like that they added Casey Jones, April, and Shredder though, when you can
That's
play with
cool.
6 people though. So that is a good.
Yeah.
I think you make a good point about the Quarry that's maybe a more friendly game, and that if you're not a video game player, you can still participate. Whereas, I feel like there are certain people, if I sat them down with Ninja Turtles, they just would be overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
Where they could sit behind somebody saying, oh, no, you do this. Or even if you handed off the controller, they could, do the QuickTime events and that sort of thing. So, I mean, I think there's a good argument given the, best game with friends and everything.
And I just want to add, I think with Rift Tracks, that's a game I'd be in the mood for often, to do with friends. For as far as a beat 'em up game goes for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'd rather play one of the Streets of Rage games or something personally. So,
all right. Well, best game with friends goes to Rift Tracks, the game with the Quarry as our runner-up. Next category is Best Retro Bone. So this is the game that best threw a bone to retro fans, which is it's less dirty than it sounds. Stop laughing, Alicia. And our nominees are Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike and the Quest for Stolen Gum, or Stale Gum, excuse me. Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Cowabunga Collection.
So for there was a portion of my life where everything was about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I'm sorry.
When I was growing up, and there was also a portion of my life with the Garbage Pail Kids. It was just all about that. So I feel nostalgia with both of those quite a bit. However, I think the Atari 50, the Anniversary Celebration, brings in so many games for everybody that I think that is probably the best overall of these 4 with that. And I don't know if I can pick a a runner-up for that because, like you said, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Garbage Pail Kids were a good part of my life. So,
yeah, I think for me, the Atari 50 is an easy win on this, just because that was the one too that like had all the history documents and all that too. Just the thoroughness of that to me, like OJ said, it really can hit so many people with that retro niche. And then runner-up, and it for my own personal feelings, I feel more nostalgia for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I think the runner-up on this would be Garbage Pail Kids, just because of what you had said when you played it, Justin, where like they really intentionally did not modernize the gameplay. And so I think if you're looking for that retro, like let me feel like I'm playing N64 or Sega Dreamcast or whatever, I think that's what makes Garbage Pail Kids the runner-up, in my opinion.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, I think Atari 50 for me is like hands down the winner in this category. I probably feel stronger than I have in any of the other categories we've had so far.
Yeah.
That's the winner. And then I'm kind of torn between Shredder's Revenge and Garbage Pail Kids. Mostly because Ninja Turtles is the better game of those two. It's the more fun game to play. Like I feel like I spent more time. I played both of these games, and I spent more time with Shredder's Revenge, and I could see myself going back and playing it again with a group of people. So like, something like Playing for Bets, I could see like playing through that again with a group. Whereas Garbage Pail Kids, it was a fun experience, but like I don't know that it's a fun experience that as many people are going to get something out of, because it does feel incredibly niche. You both have to have that nostalgia for the Garbage Pail Kids and nostalgia for that style of 8-bit game, which I think makes you a very niche audience. I think that makes it very cool, and I think maybe that makes it like the best bone anyone threw this year to that very niche audience. But if I was thinking more kind of broadly of what I would recommend to people, I think it's Shredder's Revenge over it. And so I think that's how I would lean.
I'm good with that. I'm not strongly committed to either runner-up. Like you, I'm very, like, Atari 50 is the knockout winner, but I'm not committed to either runner-up. So I'm down with Shredder's Revenge for that.
Yeah, and I think Shredder's Revenge is also bringing back a lot of the retro, like, one-screen co-op. Like, everyone just sitting on a couch, too.
Yeah, which we've had some attempts, Streets of Rage 4 in recent years, but this is just the best one of those. This is the best of those side-scrolling beat-em-up that we've had in recent years. All right, so best retro game goes to Atari 50, the anniversary celebration. Best retro bone, excuse me. Make sure we get that title right. With Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge as our runner-up. Next category is Best Surprise of the Year. And the nominees are Stray, Vampire Survivors, Power Wash Simulator, Marvel Snap, Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike and the Quest for Stale Gum, Teardown, Tunic, and Tinykin.
So I think for me, the best surprise of the year was Stray. Like, I liked a lot of these games, but I was not expecting Stray to be as amazing as it was. I was not expecting it to be as fantastic. And then when it came out, and I was like, oh, I'll try this as a cat simulator. And then I just absolutely, like, loved it.
It was like a cute little stray cat that walked into your life.
Yeah. And so, and I think that the gameplay was awesome. And just the fact that I wasn't expecting it makes it the best surprise for me.
Yeah, I would say of these, Stray, Vampire Survivors, and Marvel Snap are maybe my top three.
Yeah.
Even though I really liked Power Wash Simulator, and I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. And like the rest of these, like I can say Garbage Pail Kids was really maybe the biggest surprise. I don't know, it's the best surprise.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest surprise because I just never thought we'd get a Garbage Pail Kids game in that style in that way. Like I could have seen them doing a game. Tunic is a great game. Teardown is really unique. and Tinykin is really a lot of fun. But I don't know that those are the best surprise I've had this year. I think it's really those three for me. And, I think obviously Vampire Survivors, I think is just a fantastic, unique experience. And I think it kind of like took over all of gaming this year. And you had this little $3 game on Steam that everyone was playing and was like the number one game on Steam for several months. And then, I think Marvel Snap, again, is this game that none of us saw coming. Nobody thought a card game on the phone would just take over in the way that it did. And you just talk to so many people who were like, yeah, I'm just playing this. I'm playing it all the time. And I'll add to Stray that Stray is a really fantastic game as well. You could have told me that a cat game would come out this year, and I've been like, oh, that sounds cool, but I don't know that I would have thought it would have been as good as that game turned out to be, and that game actually turned out to be much better than I expected.
I think there's also just the creativity of the idea of Stray too, like the idea of kind of like a cat being a cat in a cyberpunk dystopia. That's just such a cool idea. Despite Marvel Snap being mine personally, I'm just actually, after kind of hearing about it, I'm kind of throwing my hat behind Stray a little bit. But I guess if I do want to sing my praises for Marvel Snap, it's just that I think I saw this. I'm like, I don't care. It's an app card game. I'd rather just play a card game. Screw this. Who cares? It's free. My podcast friends like it. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Okay, I've been playing this for 5 hours.
Yeah, and I think that's the experience that people have with that game, right? Is that they sit down, they're like, this is kind of interesting. And I think I told on here my nephew over Thanksgiving, he kind of had that same reaction. Yeah, this seems kind of interesting. And then 2 hours later, he's coming up to me, well, what is the best combination I should use here? And I'm like, you're still playing that? And so I think a lot of people have that reaction to it. I mean, I don't know. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would put it into Marvel Snap just because I think the thing with Stray for me is that, and I haven't played it, so disclaimer there, nor have I watched it, but I've seen like the length of the Let's Plays on it, and it's like 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 to 5 hours, I think.
And I think a lot of the people who I was around were like, kitty game? Let's go. A lot of people who I interacted with were like, this is going to be the best thing ever. And so I think for me, Marvel Snap would be the bigger surprise, just in terms of gameplay, in terms of game and enjoyability, and the surprise of the fact that it's still not pay to play. Like that you can actually still enjoy the game in full, and we talked consistently about how well made this game is. It doesn't feel it feels like a complete game that can still have more added rather than an incomplete game that needs more added. So I think it would be Marvel Snap for me, but I could go with Stray as a runner-up. And I only say that I could go with Stray as a runner-up because now it seems we're divided 2v2.
You know what? You actually convinced me. I was thinking about what you said, and I think a lot of people were really into Stray. Like not many people were surprised. Like at large,
But I don't know if people were surprised because what you brought up, being surprised at how well it played and how that stuff I wasn't hearing about.
But it is fair. I knew there was going to be a cat simulator, though. So when it came out, I wasn't surprised that it came out. So I can do that. I was surprised with Marvel Snap. I didn't know that there was anything in the works for that.
Well, and I think not even.
And I was surprised by how much I liked it too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll say I think for me it's not about if we're going by being surprised it came out. I would go Garbage Pail Kids, but but I think
all this talk and then Garbage Pail Kids wins.
But I think like you guys were saying, best surprise of
it's best surprise, not biggest surprise.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that matters, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the best surprise? I mean, I think biggest surprise, Vampire Survivors wins.
Yeah.
Because that's a game that came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
like that, you know, that's not even Marvel Snap where that had a pedigree of developer behind it.
Yeah.
But is it the best surprise? And I think Marvel Snap, we're all still playing,
Yeah.
right? Alicia, you're not, but the three of us who started playing it are still playing it. I was playing it
If I
last
had
night.
time, after I move, maybe I'll have time.
I'm gonna play it later today.
Set a timer.
Will do.
Play it with your cat, and you get the best of both worlds. That's a Stray and Marvel Snap. And, you know, and then I think Stray as the best surprise that, like, that game was actually good. You know, like when we saw the trailer, I know we talked about, I think we talked about it here on the podcast, that like, oh, it's a cat game. That's fun.
Yeah.
And like, we were all kind of interested because we like cats, but I did not expect that game to be as good as it turned out to be. And while I don't think it's the best game of the year, I do think it is one of the best games of the year that I played, at least. And I think that makes it one of the best surprises. So I think it kind of sounds like we're saying Marvel Snap wins this and Stray gets runner-up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give us that.
Although I will say, Justin, I'm kind of surprised you're not backing Tunic more on this because you seem to like really be into that one for a bit, and like that one caught you off guard.
It did, and like, I mean, a category like this is so hard because like Teardown, well, that had been kind of in early access. It finally released this year, so is that a big surprise? Not as much, but like also like that game when it was originally released was a pretty big surprise. I remember still seeing the demo of that game as a little like GIF on Twitter. The developer had put it on there. I was like, what the hell is this game? Like, this looks like nothing else. And
It looks pretty.
And then when finally playing it, I was like, well, this game's amazing. And Tunic, again, that's a game that had been hyped for years as in development. And the big surprise was how good that game actually turned out to be. But certainly we kind of knew that game was coming. And, you know, I think it's very surprising how good it is, but like maybe not, you know, but I can make that argument about Elden Ring. Like Elden Ring, I had never liked any of those games all that much before and really ended up liking that one quite a bit. So it's a tough category.
Yeah.
Because I think it's vague enough you could go a lot of different ways with it. All right, let's go next to Wildest News of the Year. Our nominees are Chris Pratt's Mario voice, Microsoft buying Activision, Meta raising the Quest 2 price, PlayStation Plus's 3 tiers, and Diablo Immortal needing $100,000 to max a character.
And James Marsden. Which is what that character maxes into.
Okay, so my argument for Wildest News of the Year is the Diablo Immortal needing $100,000 to max the character.
Yeah.
Because when I was looking to see, because we talked about a few numbers previously, and when I looked up to see how much it actually cost somebody spent over $100,000 to max out one character. Keep in mind, you can have multiple characters.
Over
Right.
$100,000.
Over $100,000. And then when they maxed the character out, they were so powerful that the game would not make matches with them with other players for PvP. So spent over $100,000 and then lost access to a part of the game because they were too powerful. The game would not match them with someone.
That's just cruel.
Yes, yes. And the fact that they made over $100 million from it, and
God.
yeah.
Yeah, as much fun as we all had making fun of Chris Pratt's Mario voice, I feel like Diablo Immortal is just so mind-blowing. Like, Chris Pratt's Mario voice was very much, I think, the joke news of the year.
Yeah.
But Diablo Immortal needing $100,000 plus to max out a character is just like, I can't even fathom putting $100 into a game, let alone $100,000.
Yeah, that wins it for me. Again, like Chris Pratt's is like the most like WTF, but it's in the sense of like really you cast him for Mario. But yeah, no, just the like sheer like shockingness of it. Like it's the Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, I think Diablo Immortal I can get behind. Chris Pratt I can get behind. I also think Microsoft buying Activision was a wild story.
That was also buck
happened.
wild.
Yeah.
Because I was actually teaching the video game class at the time and read that headline that morning, I guess, because it seemed like that story broke at like 3 a.m. or something. And then went into class that morning and taught. And it was like, hey, this is a seismic bomb dropped in the video game industry.
Absolutely.
At a level that we just don't see very often at
Yeah.
all in the game industry or any industry, really. I mean, think about it, like Disney buying Fox is maybe the equivalent we can point to.
Yeah, I'd be willing to put that at runner-up, honestly, because I feel like I said, the Chris Pratt Mario voice. I feel like we were more disappointed than mind blown.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think wild, I think overwhelming, not like underwhelming, like Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the mildest news of the year was Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I would put Diablo at number 1 and Microsoft buying Activision as the runner-up.
And like a splattered tomato like on his face for Chris Pratt's Mario voice.
Do we even want to waste a good tomato, though?
No.
So-
Kirby might eat it.
He would just absorb it and become the tomato and
And
then
he-
throw
and then he
himself
might
at Chris
accidentally-
Pratt.
Maxim tomatoes restore your full health for Kirby, so...
And then he might accidentally absorb Chris Pratt, and we don't want to do that like Cronenbergian H.R. Geiger stuff to Kirby.
All right, so our winner for Wildest News of the Year is Diablo Immortal needing $100,000 to max out a character, and runner-up, Microsoft buying Activision. Next category, Most Stylish Game of the Year. Our nominees are High on Life, Pentiment, Metal Hellsinger, AI the Somnial Files, and Stray.
Are we all okay with just knocking High on Life off of here?
Yeah,
I don't want to give
fine.
anything to High on Life.
Yeah.
I mean, we did give it an award.
We gave it a
earlier.
runner-up for most disappointing.
Yeah, we don't want to give it a good award.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there's like anything cool, stylistically cool going on with it. Like I think the guns just look kind of stupid from what I saw it. Like they were kind of gross. Like, but like they're not like. Even then, they're not like cool, stylish, gross like Scorn or something. So.
Yeah, I'll say about Metal Hellsinger, there's definitely a style to that game. It's very much a Doom style, very much
Well, wait. Are we saying stylish or most stylistic? Because stylish, I would think like fashion and all that. Stylistic would be like you have a aesthetic and you're sticking to it and making it really cool.
I think stylish more than stylistic, right? Because this is the game. This is the game that walks into the room and all the other games turn and look at it.
Okay.
Right? This is the stylish game.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think Metal Hellsinger like has that. You know, it has its style. It has. It harkens back to '90s, mid '90s PC games. Your Dooms, your Quakes, that era of games and everything. The look of it is not so much. It's the music. You know, it's the fact that you have this heavy metal soundtrack and everything, and then like when you really kick into things and it kicks in, and and it starts in some heavy metal song, dun, 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 and you are the leader, Lord. And you're just like, oh man, this game has style to it, right?
Yeah.
Like this game's going to like take your little sister out and knock her up, and like, this is a bad game.
Whoa!
That sends a bad message.
Hey, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Don't let your little sister date this game.
I am revving the wheels and I cannot get out of this mud. Okay.
I am on board with the bad boy game, Metal Hellsinger.
I'm down for that.
I do want to give an honorable mention to another one that I didn't think to mention on here earlier. I would have brought up Citizen Sleeper. Not the most stylistic overall game, but if you see like the character design and the artwork in that for like how they just do the characters, just that, like the environments, and The music, those aren't that notable, but just that character design is lovely. I'm fine with giving it to Metal Hellsinger. I might support a runner-up for AI the Somnium Files, just because that game overall has such a, like, those games I think have a very, like, distinct aesthetic to them. The character design is really good in those. One of my favorite new characters, and is Meiji. He's got, like, a television-shaped head, and it's just so weird. But aside from having, like, such cool and iconic character designs, like, it has, like, really neat techno music for the background that also has, like, some operatic sounds going on. Those are just like a very distinctive feeling games. And also stylistically, the gameplay, the different dream worlds you go into, they have their own looks. Like one is like this very twisted game show with like references to things like Evangelion and stuff, which is one of my favorite animes. And then you also have like gate level like dreams that are like inspired by things like Pokemon Go or something. So it's like playing Pokemon Go in the middle of this. So I think just like the smorgasbord of like different designs and stuff that go on to it, like along with character design, music, stuff like that. And like, you know, usually stylish, like the characters like wardrobes in this game are on frickin' point. So I would at least like to give it like a runner up.
Oh, I agree with that.
I'm down for that.
All right, so our winner for most stylish game is Metal Hellsinger with AI the Somnium Files. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, which is just quite a mouthful of a title for a
Though
game.
maybe not as big a mouthful as Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Mike, and Mr. Stale Gum.
No, we don't have that as a category for like most mouthful of game this year, but
Next year.
yeah, maybe we should consider that for next year.
Craziest title. Let's go.
All right, that does it for our categories, but we still have the game of the year, our top 10 to get to. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break, and we're actually going to come back and record the second part of this podcast and do that as an entirely separate podcast for our narrowing down and ranking of our top 10 games of the year. So we'll have that podcast as a follow-up and everything. Please stay tuned for that. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you very soon.
And congratulations, James Marston.